Have you ever watched a diplomat give some long, rambling speech, and then just moments later, an interpreter delivers this perfectly crisp, clear version? It really feels like magic. But it's not. It's an incredibly refined skill, and today we're going to pull back the curtain on one of their most powerful, secret weapons.
Seriously, just imagine for a second that you're in that hot seat. The speaker is going off on tangents. They're using weird idioms. They're throwing in tons of filler words. And it's your job to make all of that make perfect sense to a brand new audience, instantly. How on earth do you pull that off without losing your mind or, completely messing up the speaker's original meaning?
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get into why paraphrasing is so much more than just swapping out a few words. Then, we'll see why it's basically an interpreter's best friend. After that, we'll peek inside their playbook of techniques. And finally, we'll weigh the amazing rewards against some pretty serious risks.
All right, let's dive right in. When most of us hear the word paraphrase, we probably think back to high school book reports, right? But in the world of professional interpreting, it is a whole different ballgame, a much more sophisticated and absolutely crucial technique.
So here's the official definition we're working with. Yeah, it's about rewording something, but here's the golden rule. You have to preserve the main ideas and information. Think of it like this. You're changing the box, but the gift inside stays exactly the same.
Now, it's really important to get one thing straight. Paraphrasing is not the same as summarizing. As you can see here, summarizing is all about condensing. You're deliberately cutting out information to make a shorter version. Paraphrasing, though, that's the art of rephrasing for clarity and impact, all while making sure every last bit of the original information is still there.
Okay, so we know what it is, but the big question is why? Why do interpreters rely on this so heavily? Well, it turns out this isn't just some clever linguistic trick. It's a strategic necessity for surviving in a crazy high-pressure job.
It really boils down to three huge reasons. First, it just cleans up the message. Let's be honest, speakers ramble, they repeat themselves, they use a ton of filler words. Paraphrasing lets the interpreter slice right through that noise. Second, it builds a cultural bridge. An idiom or joke that lands in one language might be totally confusing or worse, offensive in another. Paraphrasing adapts it. And third, it's a cognitive lifeline. It helps them manage their notes and their memory when the pressure's on.
Which brings us to the how. And this isn't something interpreters just wing. It's a practiced, deliberate skill with a very clear set of techniques. So let's open up the playbook and see how it's done. To really master this, it's a four-step process. First, you listen to truly understand, not just to hear. Second, you jot down the key concepts, not every single word. Then comes the wildest part. You deliver your version without looking back at your notes. I know, it sounds crazy, but this is the real mental workout. It forces your brain to actually process the meaning instead of just playing word swap. And finally, you compare and fine-tune.
Let's start with the most fundamental tool in the entire playbook, the synonym. This is the basic building block of all paraphrasing. It's the simplest, most direct way to start rewording a sentence and making sure the original intent stays perfectly intact.
And this just shows you the power of a good synonym. Why say "at this point in time" when you can just say "now"? Or a mouthful like "exposed a critical turning point" becomes the much cleaner "made it apparent." It just makes the message so much more direct and way easier for the audience to digest.
Okay, next up is a more advanced move, changing the entire structure of the sentence. This is where the real artistry really comes into play.
So here we have a simple, super straightforward sentence. Active voice. The doctor changed the appointment. Easy enough, right?
But just by flipping it to the passive voice, the appointment was changed, the interpreter can shift the focus. And more importantly, it gives their brain a completely different pathway to build the sentence. When you're juggling complicated ideas under a ton of pressure, having multiple ways to say the same thing, well, that's not just a trick, it's a cognitive safety net. Same meaning, totally different road to get there.
And the playbook doesn't stop there. An interpreter might take the end of a speaker's sentence and make it the beginning of theirs. Or they'll take one of those monstrously long run-on sentences and expertly break it into 2 or 3 short, clear ones. It's all about having the mental flexibility to reshape information on the fly.
But, and this is a big but, like any powerful tool, paraphrasing comes with a serious warning label. When it works, it's brilliant. But when it goes wrong, the consequences can be huge. This is truly a high-reward, high-risk game.
So let's put the benefits and the challenges right next to each other to really see the full picture of this double-edged sword.
On one hand, the benefits are massive. A great paraphrase makes the interpretation so much clearer and easier for the audience to get. That, in turn, makes the interpreter look more confident and credible. And, like we said, it's a key strategy for managing stress and just plain exhaustion during a long job.
But the risks are just as big. A bad paraphrase can twist the message or leave out critical details. It could totally misrepresent the speaker's tone. Like turning a sarcastic comment into a sincere one. And that can lead to real misunderstandings, maybe even conflict. It is a tightrope walk every single time.
Which leaves us with this final question. Is this secret weapon a necessary art form that literally makes communication possible across languages? Or is it a dangerous compromise that always risks sacrificing the speaker's true voice just for the sake of clarity? The next time you see an interpreter at work, you'll know the incredible balancing act that's happening right there, behind the scenes.